Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our new episode of The Caregiver's Voice. Today, I am going to be diving into a subject that I think many of you can relate to. Open up a conversation as we walk through the complexities of healthcare, the costs of caring for a loved one, and how daunting and complex the subject matter is. So I have a variety of windows open here because I wanted to come at you with some facts. So bear with me if you hear a little bit of clicking. So let's start with the cost for caregiving. I don't know if I mentioned this before. If I did, please forgive the redundance. But one of the things that I was very surprised when I first learned about my loved one having dementia, it wasn't the very first thing, but it was more like one of the very first changes that we had to take at home was installing protective parts to the home to prevent from falling. So one of the things that we did was install the bars, the handicap bars inside the shower, which of course are absolutely atrocious looking, but so greatly necessary. And I don't know if this is something that happens only for people that are with dementia, or I would say it's even more important for people with a motor skill or disease or challenge like Parkinson's. But it definitely is something that we tend to see with elderly people. And that was one of the first things that kind of felt like a bucket of ice water because my loved one doesn't look or behaved like someone who needs that kind of stuff, or at least she didn't 3-4 years ago. The handicap bars was one of the many things that we were completely blind to knowing that we would have to do. These are the things that kind of doctors and nurses give you. They give you this overwhelming list of things that need to happen on top of, oh yeah, your loved one has dementia or your loved one is going to get worse and worse with time. And the other thing was talking about something like a tracking device, cameras for protection. There's also this one item that some people were talking about as if it was imminent very soon rather than later, and that was having a nurse. Whether the first option that we were really given was, well, if you decide to put her in a home, and that simply isn't an option for us. I think it was just shocking to see that that was the first option that was provided rather than, you need to think about if you're going to be able to or interested in taking care of your loved one at home, or if a caring facility would be more convenient for her and your lifestyle and your needs and your time, etc., etc., etc. So in the process of learning about having help at home, I have probably mentioned this in some of my articles, we are waiting until it really is needed. There are some places, I don't know if they're all non-for-profit, but there are some companies and access to healthcare that we can tap into for small grants. And I say small, and you're going to understand my conundrum in a minute when I run the numbers for you, because of how much it really costs to care for a loved one. There was an article I ran into. There was actually an article in the New York Times in November that mentions this. And there was some other articles that have been done in the past few years. What bugs me about these articles is they tend to talk about numbers from a point of view of nationwide and billions rather than a person and a person's or a family's specific cost. So I'm going through these articles as we speak right now so that I can quote some numbers for you. But um, the article from the New York Times is actually back from November of last year. I'll be posting the link at the end of this in case you're interested in reading it, but it's called Facing Financial Ruin as Costs Soar for Elder Care. And they talk about families who have ran up into high medical debts, lines of credit, credit cards to be able to take care of their loved ones. There is some statistics brought up in here, and I believe some of them are also obtained from the Alzheimer's Association, that say that by 2050, the year 2050, the population of Americans 65 and older is projected to increase by more than 50% to 86 million, according to census estimates. Number of people 85 or older will nearly triple to 19 million. And there is a chart that talks about percentages of percent who died broke. I'm surprised to see this type of verbiage in the New York Times, but they said 2% did not need long-term care. This is among Americans who had 171,365 to $1.8 million in savings. I can tell you I don't have either of those myself. Don't know if you do, but here's a number. They say that those with greater long-term care needs were much more likely to deplete their savings than those who did not need long-term care. So, as I was saying, 2% did not need long-term care, 9% needed long-term care, 18% had paid help, I guess like a nurse, and 23% lived in a nursing home. When we were talking about nurses, there is some, I believe it's through the Alzheimer's Association, they can, if you qualify for all the requirements and the things that they're looking for, you can qualify for a one-time grant. I don't know if it's one time a year or one-time period for up to $500. Now, 500 already doesn't sound very high to me, but let me break it down for you. And I already sort of did the math here. We're guesstimating, I would say $22 an hour. It is going to be costing a lot because when we were first learning about this at $22 an hour, I thought, well, we don't need a full-time nurse right now. We could use somebody for maybe a couple of hours a week or a day, so that's not too bad. But the answer was no. No nurse will come and work for less than 8 hours a week. So you need to guarantee 8 hours a week, okay? I'm sorry, 8 hours per day. 8 hours per day. So if I'm going to go into $22 an hour and I multiply that by 8 hours in one day, that's $176. Now, please understand, I'm not talking from the perspective of the nurse. I don't think that $22 is a high salary. That's a separate conversation. I'm more pointing out what it would be for someone like myself who's in a fixed income and trying to sustain her family. So at $176 per day, this is $22 an hour. Let's say that you needed that person to come in at least 5 times a week. So now you're looking at $880 per week. At $880 per week, multiplied by 4 weeks, that's $3,520. Again, these are not, if I was a nurse, I wouldn't be saying, oh yeah, you're overpaying me. That's definitely not what I'm saying. I'm just going based on myself and my family and what our situation would be. So that's a $42,240 annual salary. And I think that's at a low end. So then I came across this website in the middle of doing my investigation. The name of the company is CareIndeed.com. CareIndeed, I believe they are out of California. I had no exchange or conversation with them, so this is my disclosure. This is just purely from the website. My search was, what's the cost of caregiving, or what's the cost of caring for someone. So they actually have a website, and their tab that I'm sharing with you guys is regarding the in-home dementia care cost. And this is along the lines of what we would need. We would need somebody to come in and help out in our home because our loved one is in the comfort of her home. She's got her pet, which gives her the sense of security, and we're there, etc., etc. It would be more to alleviate. But I wanted to look at the numbers overall. So this is from their website, and like I said, this is going to be listed along with this podcast. Monthly costs for part-time versus full-time care. The monthly cost of in-home dementia care depends on the number of hours of care needed per week. For part-time care, 20 to 30 hours per week. These are the numbers. Home health aid is $2,200 to $4,200 a month. CNA, $2,600 to $4,800 per month. LPN, $3,900 to $7,200 per month. RN, $5,200 to $10,800 a month. Let me pause here for a moment. Like I said, this is all new to me, and the only description here that I know I have seen time and time again is RN, which is a registered nurse. So I said, well, let's think this through as if I was a 5-year-old who needs to understand. And by 5-year-old, I'm being way too generous within understanding such a cumbersome subject. I think it's more like a 3-year-old. So I wanted to know, all right, give me the differences of all these designations, because they're clearly medical and they're definitely related to nurses, but what's the difference? So in summary, and I'm sure some of you already know this, and if this sounds repetitive, I apologize. LPNs work under the supervision of an RN in the unit, meaning a registered nurse, but they can do more than a CNA, meaning a certified nurse assistant, since they have advanced training. So CNA is a certified nurse assistant, LPN is a licensed practical nurse, and RN is a registered nurse. Licensed practical nurses, LPNs, can provide open wound care, they can give injections, they can insert and care for catheters, assist with tube feeding, care for patients on ventilators, and perform emergency CPR, among many other tasks. Clearly, the numbers vary. CNA, meaning the certified nurse assistant, is, I guess, the one with the least amount of training or ability to do some of the close to doctorly things that they can do, and those are the ones that run for less money, right? $2,600 to $4,800 a month. And the highest is the registered nurse, that is $5,200 to $10,800. But these are numbers for part-time. For full-time care, 40 hours plus per week. For a home health aide, you're looking between $4,400 to $7,000 a month. So going into the higher end, they're saying per month times 12 months, that would be $84,000. That would be the home health aid basis of it. A certified nurse assistant would run between 5,200 to 8,000. A licensed practical nurse would be 7,800 to 12,000 per month. And the registered nurse is from 10,400 to 1,800 per month. And then they disclose their annual cost for in-home dementia care can range from 26,400 to $216,000, depending on the level and frequency of care required. What I appreciated about this website is they start talking about paying options and financial aspects that can be overwhelming and how to go about it. And I'm personally not very brilliant with numbers. I can get very creative. I'm really good with Photoshop. I can have creative ways of thinking and troubleshooting, but when it comes to thinking of investments and that kind of thing, that's where I don't shine. But I'm always very, very interested and open to learning from other people. So one of the things that they're mentioned, which I do know about this, is the savings and retirement funds that relatives have that they can access to take care of their loved ones. Many families use their own financial resources, such as savings accounts, 401ks, or IRAs, to pay for in-home dementia care. You can use annuities, you can use life insurance policies, and then they talk about something that I actually learned just recently. I actually learned this through a post on Instagram that is called long-term care insurance, which are policies that can help cover the cost of in-home dementia care. But it seems that some insurance companies already have a level of that. So all of this to basically say, ask insurance policies, ask Medicare, Medicaid, whatever your loved one has access to and can qualify for. There is, if you're a veteran, there is VA healthcare, there is veterans directed care. And then there is a difference, of course, between Medicare and Medicaid, and the one that has the Part B and all these things that they're just so crazy. And I know I'm not providing answers. I think it's more like a discussion because there are so many people out there having to go through this as caregivers. I can tell you that insurance lingo on its own can be very complex. I know that there are many different features that you can add to an insurance policy, but when you're depending on a certain amount of income to actually just meet your needs. Speaking for myself, every little feature that I add to my insurance policy is money that is coming out of my pocket. It's just very cumbersome to have this conversation. And I'm curious to know from our nurse friends who follow our group and anyone who has walked already through this, if you are kind enough to bring in more light or maybe bring in another source of understanding. Talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old because it can be very confusing. And I think when you're dealing with matters of dealing with your loved one, you already are struggling with your own feelings. You are struggling when you see that all your efforts or even their efforts is not enough because there is no cure for something like dementia or Parkinson's as of yet. There are ways of slowing it down, but not necessarily even managed. Like there is no magic pill that you can take that as long as you take it, you'll have, your memory will increase or your cognition will be clear or that your judgment, I was going to say will be sound, but at this point, I'll settle for have judgment. That's all gone. That's all gone with dementia. For ADHD, there's at least some type of medication that some people can take, but of course, it all depends on the cocktail of other things that you could, as a human being experienced, have to deal with. Any other aches and pains or any other medications that can have a counteracting effect with that medication. So it's just a lot. It's just a lot to deal with. It's overwhelming. And something that I wanted to share as a side note, not related to finance, is some therapy resources that not everybody knows about. I did mention it in a post, and but I don't know if people were actually able to catch it. I don't know what it would be in the UK or if there is something similar in the UK, but there is something called Live Big, like being alive. Live Big. There is Live Big, and then there's Live Loud. So, as I mentioned before, between dementia and Parkinson's, there are a lot of symptoms that coincide. It's like they're like intertwined. Like a dementia patient may develop a Parkinsonian tremor, but also a Parkinson's patient will develop delusions that you expect in dementia, or even some of that anxiety and forgetfulness. So, for whichever it is that matters, and I don't know enough about the other neurodegenerative diseases. I don't know enough about ALS, schizophrenia, or anything else that is not dementia and Parkinson's. I'm happy to be educated on the matter and share your knowledge if you feel inclined to do so. I'm completely humble in this matter, but it can be very, very helpful. So, Live Big is basically body movement. It is teaching, and not teaching as in reading a book or showing pictures or just telling another person. It is just like in physical therapy, showing exercises and making the patient do them over and over and over again, along the side with stretching and exercising, but it is a specific number of over exaggerated movements. And the reason that matters, actually, it matters for both Parkinson's and dementia, but I'm thinking of the Parkinson's person, they lose the ability, their brain thinks that a certain body part is no longer functioning. And so if you feel that your right foot no longer works, then you're not going to use your right foot. You're basically just using your left foot, and the right foot is either dragging or immobilized or you trip, which is, I think, one of the many things that happens to the beloved Michael J. Fox. He trips a lot, he falls a lot. So that takes care of that physical lack of balance, which is very much of Parkinson's, but also dementia. It will help them catch themselves from falling if they feel that they're falling. I believe is judo, the martial art that actually focuses on how to fall properly, which is crazy. I never thought there would have to be a correct way or bad way of falling, but very much so. And I have seen it myself happen. And it keeps the momentum and the ability of your body to continue to move as if you were a regular person through these very exaggerated movements. Live Loud goes based on voice and is very similar to Live Big. It's this exaggerated things that you're doing, but you're saying them. So our loved one has Live Big, Live Loud, speech therapy, because now we're looking at not just forgetting the language skills that she has, but also just forgetting what things are. And sometimes it would be in only one language, but I have seen it actually happen in both, where she's pointing at a tissue, she doesn't know what it's called, or I will show her like a book or something and she doesn't know what that is. She goes, "What is that?" And I go, "What do you mean? That's a book." "What's a book?" So these are all therapies that if you don't do them, or if you don't have access to it, you're missing out on some big help. And it's almost like the medication for fibromyalgia, for instance. You take it, you take it, you take it. You go for 3 months, you go for 6 months. You hurt a little less, but you're still in pain. You're still in pain. One day you decide all on your own, cold turkey, to take it no more. Stop taking the medication because you're still in pain and it makes no difference. And between 48 hours, the pain full blown comes back. And then you realize, oh, it was helping. It just isn't getting rid of everything. I don't know that therapy is going to get rid of everything. I think it's just trying to keep your loved one mental, physical, and emotional stage that it's a little bit more, I'm sorry to say this, as close to your normal person as they can be prior to their diagnosis than if you didn't have those tools. So in the process of going through researching and finding out about numbers and articles and the Alzheimer's Association's annual report, etc., which is available for anyone. You can just search it online or go to the Alzheimer's Association website. I found an interesting article from Fortune magazine online, fortune.com, and it was an article about Medicare Dementia Guide Program for Caregivers. So there's something called GUIDE, Guide, which stands for Guiding an Improved Dementia Experience. And it was launched on July 1st of this year, 2024. It is apparently a new pilot program that was creating a system of free caregiving navigators for people in Medicare who have any stage of dementia and their family caregivers. I have not looked into this, you guys. It is definitely something that I'm interested in. But before we end our conversation tonight, I will share a few more resources or one more resource that I don't want to forget to mention in a moment. And then it continues on to say, the navigators get 20 hours of training to help recipients sort through the confusing, sometimes maddening system of health care and long-term care so they receive appropriate assistance. They meet with the Medicare beneficiary or caregiver between once a quarter or twice a month or more, depending on the complexity of the need. Guide participants also offer 24/7 helplines. So obviously the Alzheimer's Association does as well, but that's obviously Alzheimer's and dementia. Medicare reimburses Guide participants for their services $65 a month to $300 a month, depending on the complexity of care for the person with dementia. Medicare beneficiaries don't have to pay a nickel. And then the last thing I'll say here is they can also provide free respite care valued up to $2,500 for caregivers of people with moderate or severe dementia. Here's the sad part of it is the guide is not available to people in nursing homes or hospice or with Medicare Advantage plans. Guide is not available to people in nursing homes or hospice or with Medicare Advantage plans from private health insurers, though those alternative plans can offer dementia care navigation on their own. So if you are not able to go with this program Guide because of the type of insurance your loved one has, I'm guessing his care plan may already offer something similar to Guide. Through the Seth Rogen, the actor, most people know about his story. His wife actually had her mother with dementia, and I believe she already passed. They created something called Hilarity for charity. And I will include also the link to the website. But this is one of the other sources where you can get grants. Obviously, it's a charity. So they, I guess, through their sponsors and donors, are able to collect funds, and then they distribute grants depending on the case and the information that they require. So I will include all these links on the podcast. I'm sorry this went a little bit longer than my past shows, but I wanted to talk about how difficult it is for caregivers to do the amazing work that they do. We do, but I don't see myself as a full-time caregiver, so it's a different situation. But my sibling, who is a full-time caregiver, I feel every single bit of pain and challenge and stress that she goes through in the process of navigating this very complex system. Complex as far as healthcare, complex as far as actually forget healthcare and plans, just caring what you do, what you don't do, most importantly, what works for our loved one, right? Because it what works for yours doesn't work for mine, and vice versa. And then there's the financial complexity of the different ways that people can find the sources of income to take care of their families and their loved ones. So I hope some of what I have mentioned is helpful. I will definitely include the links to the articles that I've mentioned and the charities and sources of grants that I am aware of, and hope this helps you guys with caring for your loved ones. And anything else that you obviously can see I don't know, please feel free to contact me. I really, really invite you to send me a note, send me a comment, post a comment, let me know what I might be missing that matters to you, that I'm not including. I am, as I've mentioned before, going from the aspect of dementia and Parkinson's because that is what has occurred with my family. But there's a couple more little ones that are creeping up that we will be talking about here because they will actually come into play with caregiving. For now, I am signing off. Thank you all so very much, and I am going to wish you a wonderful week ahead. Take care.